Welcome to the Jobs and Work podcast. If you're like most Americans, you spend a significant amount of your time working. In fact, we spend more time at our jobs than anywhere else. But how often do we really talk about work in America? On this podcast, the Work for Change team will. Work for Change, LLC is a team of social scientists, thought leaders, and digital storytellers who dig into the critical issues affecting American workers and workplaces today. Our podcast is co-hosted by Dr. Kendra Jason and myself, Dr. Chris Maycumber. We'll also bring guests onto the show who reflect the diversity of the American workforce. We are so excited for you to join us as we lead the efforts to humanize the workplace by building dignity and equity into jobs, work, and organizations. Please subscribe to the podcast and share us with your friends and family. You can learn more about Work for Change at workforchangellc.com. Hi, everybody. Happy Friday and welcome back to the Jobs and Work podcast. This is episode 11, and I am your co-host, Chris Maycumber.
And I'm your co-host, Kendra Jason.
And today we have our special guest, Martelle Walker, who is on the show today to talk about the experiences of older workers and the challenges and rewards it brings to being an older worker today. A brief intro to kind of introduce you and a little bit of your background, and then we're going to get started with some questions for today, okay? So Martelle graduated high school in 1969 and has had since the late 60s a variety of job experiences, including being a bank teller and a customer service representative, to name just a few. And then Martelle began college in the 1980s at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, but then returned to college to finish her education in 2016. And then in 2019, she graduated with a bachelor's in sociology from Meredith College, where she was also inducted into the Alpha Kappa Delta Honor Society in Sociology. Martelle is currently employed by the Wake County government as a social worker in the Housing Affordability and Community Revitalization Division. Martelle's passion is to help people who are homeless and people impacted by drug addiction. So we look forward to diving into some of those issues today with you, Martelle. And again, we thank you for your time. And we wanted to get started. We like to offer our guests the opportunity to talk about something that they're interested in. So we had asked you previously, what is something that you would like to talk about that you think is important? And you had said something that you wanted to discuss is the important relationship you see between older workers and younger workers. So can you just get us started with sharing your thoughts on that?
Certainly. One of the things that has, especially the older I get, I noticed that when in the workplace, when you have someone that's older, past a certain age, and you have younger workers, students or graduate students that are just coming out into the workplace, there seems to be a tension between the older workers and the younger workers. And one of the things that I found that it was so much easier or productive, I guess the word would be, to have some type of collaboration instead of this competition. As an older worker, there's always, you have work experience and life experience that you can offer, but whether or not my younger coworkers was receptive to that. A lot of that just depend on, I guess, the day. I don't know. But one of the things that I felt that was important, I know that I needed to learn from them. And I didn't hesitate in asking for help. Technology, that's a big one for me. And there were, I'm gonna say 90% of the time, they were very, very willing to help me. But there were always those ones that for whatever reason felt like, well, you shouldn't be here. I don't know if they felt that way. Let me put that. I felt that they said, well, you should be up on technology if you're in this job. So I always feel that it's important for us to work together to help each other so that the work experience would be better for everyone. You know, so that was one of the things that, you know, and I try to talk about that with my coworkers now, because I am the oldest one in the work on our team, you know, but it has changed. I'll put it that way. I know I had a great experience at Meredith with the younger students, you know, so that was where I was going with that.
Mm-hmm. Kendra, did you want to jump in?
Well, I was just thinking, thanks for sharing that, Martelle. There are a lot of stereotypes and myths that younger adults have about older workers in particular, especially as they're sharing the workplace. So one thing that's happening or has been happening is that the older worker workforce has grown exponentially over the past few years. As a matter of fact, you know, in the next 10 years, they expect the number of older workers to double, like literally by 100%. And so younger adults really have to get used to working with older adults in the workplace, but they hold these very rigid stereotypes, not just about older workers, but about older adults. And I just find it really interesting, your example about technology, because one thing I'm just simply thinking about is anytime you join a new workplace or a new workplace, there is a system that you have to learn that's attached to technology, and every single person who is new to this system has a learning curve. The thing is that because you're older and because these younger adults have these stereotypes, they don't give you the benefit of the doubt. They just say, oh, it's just because she's older, she doesn't get it, versus being like, oh, when I first got here too, I had to get acclimated to the system and someone had to train me. And, you know, it took a while too. And so I think one of the words you may have been looking for is, you know, perception. You know, perception does not meet reality, but perception is really important because how people perceive you is how they treat you. And that sounds like a lot of what you may be responding to, in addition to the great things, and sounds like some great collaborations and partnerships that you have with younger adults as well.
Yes, that's true. And you know, your Kendra, the word perception is great, because a lot of times I've had my perceptions also. You know, you know, I'm a grandmother, so you know, there may be someone there that is young enough to be my grandchild. So it's almost like the grandmother switch will go off, you know, and I have to pull back from that because that's not my place. That's not the lane I need to be in at that particular point. So, you know, I'm perceiving them one way. And you know, it's so funny. Some of them will say, Miss Martelle, you know, that's a sign of respect, you know, and I will always say, well, you don't have to call me Miss Martelle, but they need to, because that's who they see me as, you know. So yeah, perception is the word. Yes.
So something we were interested in too is your professional experiences, Martelle, have spanned many decades now. And there's been a lot since the late 1960s, there's been a lot of social and cultural and economic changes that have occurred. So what are some observations and experiences you've had where you can look back and sort of pinpoint some real impacts that those changes have had on whether it was the jobs you were interested in or how you experienced your jobs? What are some things that you can kind of like reflect back on now?
Well, the first one that comes to my mind is the Me Too movement. And I say that because, all right, back in the 60s, especially, well, not even if you were had a college degree or not, women were put into the administrative roles, you know, even if you had a college degree, you were expected to get the coffee and all sorts of things like that. The comments that came as a result of male entitlement, you know, how you doing today, babe? You know, that type of thing. It was so pervasive. You know, it was almost like you knew it was going to happen every day. As a result, and I'll give you a good example. I worked for a company and my department was strictly male. I mean, we had what back then they called it a steno pool, and I'm sure you all may not know what that is, but it's where the women were, they were all supposed to serve these men, you know, whatever it be, copies, whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
So it was nothing. I remember an incident where one of the engineers actually touched my behind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, but I didn't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't like it, but I didn't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result, throughout the last, 30 years, I've seen that women don't have to do that anymore. Back then, it was in our mind. It was a mindset. It was accepted, you know, even though it was uncomfortable. So that's the first thing. The other thing is I am so proud of you all. I am just amazed at the vitality, the just get up and go to get up and do what you want to do, you know, regardless if you have families, you know, that was another thing back then as a wife and a mother, it was limited, you know, my expectations of myself and expectations that was put on me was actually centered around being a wife and a mother. And so my employment or any type of idea of a career was always on the back burner. So when I look at what you all are doing with this company and also with your outside lives, that it is so, I just applaud you. You know, I've actually talked a lot about it. So, you know, I know that the Me Too movement has sort of highlighted a lot of this and made things something that people are more aware of now. But women have been struggling with this always. You know, it's just that as a result of so much publicity that you're able to see that there are women that have been doing what you all are doing. They weren't getting the credit. You know, they weren't getting the exposure. So that's the one thing that really stands out most to me. I know that the opportunities for women have grown a lot since I got into the workplace. You know, we were expected to be just service workers, and that's not the case anymore. And I think that's wonderful.
I just wanted to say something really quick. Chris, I'm sure you want to jump on the Me Too.
Got a couple thoughts.
Before you go right there, Martha, I think a really, really good point about job selection too, and job segregation. So, you know, there are male-dominated jobs and female-dominated jobs, and male-dominated jobs typically are more powerful, more money, more status, whereas female-dominated jobs tend to be around, you know, service, you know, less valued in society and less pay. Like we know that. And then we, like you said, we know too that, you know, with the women's movement and civil rights, that, you know, women have been breaking barriers and breaking glass ceilings. So we expect, you know, women should be flooded everywhere. Women should be in the top, you know, but what happens is exactly what you're talking about, is that people are going to self-select into where they find that they'll have the most success, right? And so what that means is that as women, if we've been socialized, and that's a whole nother, we've been socialized to work in service and to be a service to the men and the families and the children and to the household, then we tend to go into work, customer service, banking, you know, retail and things where we serve other people, versus men are often socialized to work outside the home, independent of that fact. And so it's not just that, you know, women aren't motivated or they don't know and they're not following all these opportunities. It's also a matter of self-selection, where you say, where will I be? What are my best chances of getting a secure job? Because that's what's most important, are taking care of your family. And then how, what can I expect to deal with while I'm there? And so I just wanted to kind of just touch on that, because I think that is really important, because a lot of people are really hard on themselves because they have these expectations that they should be doing more and be, be more brave. And we always encourage bravery and things like that. But another part of that is the reality of just self-sufficiency and survival. And that's especially where a lot of women are in comparison to men. So I just wanted to just touch on that and turn it over to Chris.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that point is great, Kendra, because we also want to enjoy the job that we have, not only for the sort of compensation, but getting through the day and not feeling like you're in a hostile environment, or not feeling like you constantly have to prove yourself. Like, that's exhausting on top of the job itself, which might be, hard to do. Martelle, if we could circle back for a moment about, you had, talked about when you were younger, the expectations for you was, that the primary role was as a wife and as a mother. And then as you've gotten older, you've been able to kind of focus on your own personal goals, educational goals. And can you talk a little bit about what it was like to have those years when you went back to college in your mid 60s and being able to focus on you and what you wanted?
Wonderful. They were absolutely wonderful. That's one of the things that I share with my grandkids a lot, that, the way it happened for me is that, of course, as a result of just getting older, not having to provide for others, that it was basically, I was at a place where one day it was, well, Martelle, you don't have to do anything for anyone else. What do you want? And the only dream I had ever had was to go to college and get a degree. Now, of course, back in the 60s, I wanted to be a doctor. So when I decided to go back at 60, I didn't say I couldn't be a doctor, but I sort of reevaluated that, whether I had the energy to be a doctor, to do that type of work. When I decided that I wanted to go back, I did something that I had never really thought about. First of all, my faith, I prayed, and I asked for direction. The door opened for me to go to Meredith. Now, immediately my mind said, let's go back to Chapel Hill. But that's not what, that was the immediate thing. Go back to where you stopped, and maybe it'll be quicker. But that's not where I was led. I was led to Meredith, an all women's college, where I got the most support. I can't even tell you. I mean, I don't want to get emotional about it, but the encouragement, we talked, the mentorship, that was where it happened for me. And as a result, the challenge of staying, working, and going to class, asking for help with Google Docs, and all of the things that was terrifying for me at times, and getting that support from faculty, from the students, the younger students. It made the biggest difference. And I know that if I had been at Carolina, I know that now, that I would not have gotten that, So, it turned out in such a positive way for me that it actually set the stage for where I am now. Where I am now, this job, even though I am a social worker, first of all, sociology, that became my passion. Being of service is a part of me, so, but being able to do it in a way that affects society as a whole, has been tremendous. And I know that I got so much, expertise from my professors, that I'm able to actually take into the workforce. And I'm working, and the strangest thing, no, it's not strange. The great thing about it, I'm working with men.
Mm-hmm.
I am actually working strictly with men. And for someone like me, who is a feminist, I would not be able to do that if I hadn't went to murder. So yeah, I got all of that by going to returning to college through murder.
You know, you said, oh gosh, you said so much in
I
that.
know, that's so much there.
I want to first say before I forget, thank you so much for, what you said about Chris and I and our, the business Work for Change. One thing that we talk about a lot, Chris and I are both mothers. We both, have, full-time jobs. And, one thing we talk a lot about is our children watching us pursue our dreams in this way. And our children have watched us mother them, right? And then, this transition for you, this transition going back to college, for Chris and I, the transition into, business ownership or, pursuing a different career after the career, your children see that. And it's, I think it's so really, you said you found your passion in sociology. And I think it's just a wonderful thing for children to witness their mothers go from a caregiving role that they eventually understand as a passion because you want to take care and you love your children, but then to have another passion that's external to them and external to the household. And we always, Chris and I always talk about, what seeds we're planting, and we can't wait to see how our children witnessing us in that capacity is going to matter. Well, we can see it a little bit now, but like later in life. So I just wanted to touch on that before I forget, because I really appreciate what you said, but you said so much.
Yeah, that's great, Kendra. Yeah, you had said if you didn't have your feminist identity, that it would be harder to do the work that you're doing. I think there's a little bit to unpack there. So can you talk more about that?
Okay. Okay. By the time I got into my 60s, I had now, first of all, let me go back. I've got 2 sons. I've raised 2 sons as a single parent. So I have navigated through raising men. But my life experiences outside of that with men have always been challenging. Okay. So I remember saying I wanted to work with the homeless. I did not clarify that. I just immediately thought it would go to women and children because of my feminist identity, because I know the need. I know the that women, how just being a woman affects so many lives that but that's not what happened. I ended up working with homeless men. Now, my and Chris knows how I feel about the word patriarchal. So when I go to work, it has been actually a plus. Let me put it that way. I don't come out in a angry Black woman type of mode. I also try to use the tools that I got in sociology, looking at this is a societal problem, and it's it affects men and women. So I've been able, I believe, because of the fact that of what I learned in sociology, the sociological eye, using that, as a way of seeing these men not as the enemy, whereas before that might have been what I would have done. I would have been, because there have been times when it's like, I could be doing something else. I could be doing something else, especially working with women and children. But I also realized that the homeless population, it doesn't discriminate, it really doesn't. So I'm able to use, and I don't know if that answers your question, but as a feminist, there's something about being a feminist that does not have to be anti-male, and I think that so many people think that that's true, but it's not.
Yeah, it's it's anti-sexism and anti-patriarchal culture and the sort of detrimental impacts it has, but it's not personal, right? In that way.
And, let me say something too. I was talking to another older, we are actually office mates, another older worker, and we both talked about this here. Would a man be able to work with homeless women and children in the same way that we're able to do? That's just a question that I put out there. So.
Well, when I think about what you said about feminism, I even broaden it to education and how education is empowering, because I think one of the things that you learn in that process of education through sociology is, for example, that, women have been socialized to make men comfortable. Women have been socialized to shrink themselves so that men feel more powerful in their space. And then when you go and get educated about it and you read about it, you realize, not necessarily that the man is the enemy, but it helps you self-reflect. And in that self-reflection, you realize, you know what? I don't have to shrink. I could be my full self. I could interact with this man and it not be based in patriarchy and power dynamics, if I show up as my full self. And that's where education helps with that empowerment, so that you don't villainize the other. You just understand that interactional dynamic, and then you can take more control and power over who you are. And I think that's what people misunderstand about when you get educated about inequality. You're not learning to hate others or villainize others. You just learn how to empower yourself, and that changes the dynamic.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so much here in terms of the role that education has had and your life experiences. Before we get to our closing, I want to learn more about your work right now, what you're doing with homeless men and some of those challenges. So I guess a direct question would be, what would you like people to know about homelessness right now that maybe most people don't know? Like, what are some challenges that you all are in trying to get people in secure, stable housing?
All right, one of the things that stands out for me, all right, my caseload is it deals with men who are on social security disability. Some of them have work experience that, that they actually are drawing from that disability income. But then the majority, I mean, probably 80% of the people on our caseload are people with mental illness. Drug abuse, but the mental illness part, they may be getting what they call Social Security income supplement, okay, which it's very small. So trying to find them a place based on that income, it's absolutely impossible here in, I think, anywhere across America, but especially here in Wake County. So what has been a challenge for me is, first of all, you have to try to get the men to address some of the issues, which, it's not, it's challenging to get someone with mental illness to, first of all, take the medication, so it's like they will come in, we will connect them to resources that we know that will help them, but we can't make them use it. So that's been very challenging for me. That's one of the things I want to say, do this, and then maybe we can do this. But my job is to help them find housing. So we all know that affordable housing in Wake County is very limited. One of the things that you have landlords that will not rent to certain populations. With sex offenders, that's a big challenge, and that's understandable. They can only live in certain areas. And then you have the ones with criminal backgrounds. One of the things I found out, which I did not know, so things have changed, is that if for any reason you have an eviction on your credit report, it stays up there forever now. It used to be it came off in 7 years, but now it's up there forever. So if you've got someone that they might have had an eviction 20 years ago, they've been on the street 20 years, but that's still there, So that's probably, Wake County has a really great ideal of trying to eradicate homelessness, but society has so many barriers to make that possible, So that's that.
Oh, I have so much to say about that, but I know that we have to wind down, because you just opened up a whole can of institutional barriers for housing. So thank you for sharing all of that with us.
I had a quick question for you. So Chris and I talk about this being a time of transition for a lot of people due to COVID-19 layoffs, just sort of like a shift in the market altogether. What advice do you have for any older adult, man or woman, doesn't matter, who is sitting in contemplation right now about if they should take the leap and start a business or go back to school or go into some new realm of life after they've had a lifetime, if you will, of a career? What advice do you have for them?
I say go for it. And the reason I say that is because, if nothing else, COVID has shown that change is always gonna happen. There is nothing. Whether you did it before COVID or you do it now, there is no better time than now.
Right.
And then the thing too, especially like when I went back to school, I wanted to go full time. I really did. I wanted to go ahead on and get this out of the way. And I'm grateful that I didn't do that, because I was setting myself up for failure if I'd done that. So I suggest that anyone that wants to do it, do it, but just take a step,
Yes.
And taking a step will lead to the next step.
Yes.
But I am one of those people that I'm glad I did it when I did it. I don't know if I would be able to do it right now, but I know that I'm doing things that I never thought I went skydiving last summer with my grandkids. I want to do things now that I've been able to get the vaccination and all that. I want to spend time with my grandkids, not just cooking for them or having holiday things. I want to take my granddaughter to Black Girls Rock thing. I want to go see Bruno Mars. There's so many things that just my taking that step to go back to Meredith has opened up this great world. Now, I know that there's a lot of fear right now with the COVID thing, but life goes on, whether we have to wear a mask or take a shot,
Yes.
So live it.
Thank you.
Great advice. Thank you so much for joining us today, Martelle, and for saying yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You all have a great day.
Thank you. And so one of the specializations that I have in particular is working, is understanding older workers in the workplace. And so if you are a manager or a business owner or your employee, and you need to better meet the needs of your older workers, please contact Work for Change. It's one of our specializations that we have, and we can help your business or organization best meet this need so that everyone has the best working experience. So please like, share, and subscribe to our different platforms. We are on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and of course, Twitter. And of course, you found us on YouTube. So please like, subscribe, and share so that we can work to make the world of work better.